"Don't touch that dog. He'll rip you apart." That's what 3 handlers yelled when the woman stepped into the kennel. The German Shepherd had shredded a handler's arm minutes earlier. Families ran. Alarms blared. The entire base wanted him put down before sunrise. But she didn't stop. She didn't blink. She walked straight in, knelt down, and did the one thing no handler is ever trained to do. She turned her back to him. The room froze. Someone whispered a prayer. Everyone waited for the attack, but it never came. Instead, the dog made a sound no one had heard from him in years. Not a growl, a whimper, because this wasn't a random visitor. This wasn't a mistake. This was the handler they declared dead 3 years ago, and the dog had never stopped waiting for her. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And if you believe honor and courage still matter, help keep their legacy alive by sharing this story. The dog hit the fence so hard the metal rang like a warning bell. Families jerked back. A toddler burst into tears as handlers rushed in with catch poles, shouting commands that didn't matter anymore. Cade wasn't listening. The big shepherd locked eyes on the nearest movement and lunged again harder. The entire demonstration field froze as if someone had hit pause on the day. One handler slipped. Another raised a shield. Sergeant Owen Holly fell back with a sharp cry as Cade's paw tore a line down his forearm. Blood dotted the dirt. The crowd scattered in a single wave. "Get him back," someone yelled. 3 handlers braced, leaning their full weight into the ropes clipped to his harness. Cade dragged all 3 a full step before finally planting his paws and snarling deep enough to rattle ribs. This was supposed to be a friendly, open base event, a harmless demonstration for families. Instead, it felt like a battlefield that everyone else had forgotten to prepare for. High above the chaos, a woman sat alone on the bleachers. Cargo pants, heavy boots, no badge, no expression. She didn't flinch when Cade screamed at the fence. She tapped her fingers once on her thigh. Tap, pause, tap. A rhythm without meaning for anyone else. But it made her rise quietly from her seat. People rushed past her, grabbing children, phones, bags. She walked the opposite direction, descending the concrete steps as if she had all the time in the world. Her eyes never left Cade. Major Ellis Ward appeared on the field's edge, face tight. He signaled for a cutoff. The PA system crackled to life with a shaky apology. Families were ushered away while medics wrapped Hale's arm. Behind the bleachers, Ward pushed open the door to the observation building. Inside, Lieutenant Mark Rivers stood stiffly, breathing hard. "Cade's done," Rivers said. "We can't keep pretending he's salvageable." Dr. Leanna Park adjusted her gloves. "MWD 5519 is beyond safe handling thresholds. Major? Next incident will be worse." Her voice was calm, clinical, a verdict, not an opinion. Ward exhaled once. "Schedule euthanasia for tomorrow." The room went silent, the way rooms do when no one wants to agree, but everyone already has. The door opened again. She stepped in without knocking. Dark hair tied back, plain jacket, no insignia. Eyes fixed on the window where Cade paced violently inside the kennels. Rivers moved first. "Ma'am, this area is restricted. You can't." "I can control him," she said it. No emotion, no hesitation, Just those 4 words dropped in the room like a stone in water. Halle snorted. You didn't see what he did out there? No one's controlling that animal. He winced as the medic tightened the bandage. She didn't look at him or at Ward. She stepped closer to the glass, watching the dog slam his shoulder into the wall again and again. Who are you? Ward asked. She said nothing. Instead, she turned, walked past all of them, and opened the door to the kennel corridor. Rivers ran after her. Ma'am, stop. You don't have clearance. That dog is dangerous. She kept walking down the narrow hallway, past the warning signs, right up to the heavy door with the red label, 5,519 high. RISK2 handlers. Minimum. She placed her hand on the lock. I said, she murmured, I can control him. Ward arrived behind Rivers, breathless with anger or fear, maybe both. Let her go, he said suddenly. Rivers stared. Sir, if she thinks she can do it, Ward said quietly, then let her try. He wasn't sure why he said it. Maybe the way she moved, maybe the strange stillness around her, maybe curiosity sharper than caution. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Cade spun instantly toward her, muscles coiled, teeth bared. Rivers swore and reached for the tranquilizer alarm. But Ward caught his wrist. She stepped inside. The air changed. The dog's growl cut off, mid-rumble, confused by something he didn't understand yet. She walked forward until she was a single arm's length from him. Then she did something insane. She knelt, turned her back to the most dangerous animal on the base, placed both hands lightly on her knees. A whisper left her lips. Just one soft, unfamiliar word that didn't belong to any standard command language. Cade froze. His breathing hitched. His ears went rigid. The snarl died in his throat like it had been switched off. The woman didn't move, didn't speak again. Her stillness filled the room with a pressure that made the handlers outside forget how to breathe. Cade took a single step toward her. Then another. Then a sound escaped him low. Fragile, almost a whine. The handlers watching through the glass knew instantly. This wasn't fear. This wasn't confusion. This was recognition. The woman exhaled once. Good boy, she whispered. Cade walked forward and gently laid his head against her back. And in that moment, the entire base understood one truth. Whoever she was, this dog had been waiting for her. Cade pressed his weight into her back like he was afraid she might vanish again. The handlers watching through the glass didn't speak. Even the ventilation hum seemed to fade as the dog's trembling slowed under her stillness. She shifted slightly, just enough to let him know she was turning. Slow, controlled, no sudden angles that might ignite an old reflex. When she faced him, Cade lifted his head and touched his nose to her collarbone like a vow reclaimed. No one outside understood the sound he made. Not a growl, not a whine. Something between grief and relief, rising from years of confusion locked inside muscle and bone. She raised her hand, 3 fingers together, palm angled down. A hand signal that didn't match any book, any program, any training archive on base. Mercer. Cade stepped back immediately. He wasn't retreating. He was assuming a posture Rivers had only ever seen in Tier 1 dogs on deployment footage, focused. Alert, waiting for an instruction only the two of them shared. The woman, still unnamed, touched the clasp on his muzzle. The handlers stiffened, ready to hit alarms or dive for the tranquilizer kit. But she wasn't reckless. She unfastened the buckle slowly, letting the strap hang free without tension. Cade didn't lunge. He didn't snap. He simply pressed his forehead to hers. A gesture so intimate it didn't belong in a military kennel. A single tear slipped down Hale's face without him noticing. Not because he feared the dog, but because he finally understood Cade hadn't been violent. He had been grieving. She whispered something, a short phrase, soft as dust, shaped in a language unfamiliar to every ear in that corridor. Cade reacted instantly, moving to heel at her left side with precision that seemed impossible a minute ago. She stood and opened the kennel door wider. Cade followed her out without a leash, ignoring every handler, every smell, every muscle twitch around him. His focus belonged only to Hera's, if the world had narrowed to a single orbit. They entered the observation room together. Ward stepped back unconsciously, clearing space he didn't remember choosing. Rivers stared between them, stunned at the transformation. She stopped in the middle of the room. Cade sat beside her, posture perfect, tail still, shoulders squared, a living contradiction to every report labeling him beyond recovery. Ward found his voice first. "Who are you?" The question hung between fluorescent lights and the faint echo of Cade's breathing. She looked down at the dog. Her hand brushed the scar behind his ear, an old deployment wound, healed except for the way it cleaved the fur. Only someone who'd been there would know the story hidden beneath that mark. "Maeve Cole," she said quietly. Not a boast, not a warning, just a truth spoken like a door opening. Rivers blinked hard. That name that was in the archives? Years ago. He lifted his sleeve, revealing the faint print of Cade's claws. "You're telling us the dog attacked everyone except you?" "He wasn't attacking," Maeve said. Her voice stayed level, steady. "He was asking for someone who never came." Ward leaned toward Rivers. "Check the file again." Rivers opened the workstation, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. The screen filled with redacted lines, black bars covering sentences, paragraphs, entire pages. Only a few fragments remained untouched. AEGIS handler. Wraith Project. AEGIS. Rivers whispered. His throat tightened. That program was scrubbed completely from the network 3 years ago. Maeve didn't look surprised. They tried to erase all of it. Her tone wasn't bitter, just tired. Rivers scrolled further. More black bars, then one clear line. Status. KIA confirmed. Hale swore softly. "You're supposed to be dead." The room filled again with the hum that had vanished earlier. Maeve kept her eyes on Cade. He knows the difference between dead and missing. Her fingers tapped her leg. Tap, pause, tap. An old habit returning like breath. Cade's ears lifted. He answered the rhythm with a quiet chuff, recognizing the pattern, like a childhood memory resurfacing after years in the dark. Ward broke the silence. "You said you could control him. You didn't say he was yours." His voice hovered between accusation and awe. Maeve stepped forward. "Cade isn't mine," she said. "He's my partner." The word partner hit the room with a thud. A reminder that military dogs weren't equipment. They were soldiers with their own scars. Ward rubbed his jaw. If what you're implying is true, then everything we've been told about you, about him, about Aegis, was a lie. His grip tightened on the folder in his hand. Maeve finally looked up. For his sake, she said softly, you're going to want the truth. Cade leaned against her leg, watching every movement like a guardian awakened. Ward nodded slowly. Then let's hear it. And in that moment, everyone understood something far bigger than a kennel had just opened. A locked story, buried under classified lines and false reports, had opened with it. And Maeve Cole was done staying dead. Rivers pulled up the remaining fragments of the Aegis archive. Most of the text was buried under thick redaction blocks, but one unblurred phrase made Ward's jaw tighten. Handler set pair for 7C. Maeve, Cole, and Cade. The room fell into a stunned silence, broken only by Cade's slow, steady breathing. Maeve didn't sit. She stood in the center of the observation room. Her posture balanced like someone ready to move at the slightest threat. Cade mirrored her stance, as though wired to the same nerve. Ward finally spoke. Project Aegis was designed for covert scent tracking in denied zones, experimental command sets, prototype communication protocols. There were rumors, but no proof. He pointed at Maeve. Until now. Maeve didn't confirm or deny. Instead, she stepped aside as Cade shifted into a tactical hold position. It was a small movement, but every handler in the room recognized it instantly. Trained instinct, not chance. Rivers' workstation chimed. A notification flashed across his screen. Unauthorized data query detected origin. Unknown, he swallowed hard. Someone outside the base just tried to access Cade's file. Hale's eyes widened. That's impossible. The servers, air-gapped. Rivers shook his head. They didn't break in. They already knew the access pattern. Maeve exhaled slowly. They're checking whether I survived. Her voice didn't rise, but every syllable carried the weight of someone who had lived through chase and betrayal. Before Ward could respond, alarms crackled through the corridor. A security officer sprinted in, holding a tablet loaded with fresh surveillance clips. Sir, you need to see this. We caught someone near the outer perimeter 15 minutes after the demonstration ended. The clips showed a man moving casually through the crowd. Clean-shaven, no insignia, wearing a visitor badge he never should have had. He kept pointing his phone at Cade's demonstration area, zooming in on the dog's scars and gait. Then the angle changed. He aimed the camera at Maeve's seat in the bleachers. Frame by frame, the footage showed him focusing on her face longer than any curious visitor would. Ward's voice dropped. Whoever that is wasn't here for the show. Maeve watched with an expression that didn't break. He's confirming identity for a network that doesn't forgive loose ends. Rivers pulled up a second clip, this one from the outer gate. The man left the base calmly, but, just before stepping out of frame, he looked directly into the security camera and smiled. Maeve looked away first. That smile means they're not hiding. It means they think you're unprepared. Her hand brushed Cade's head, grounding him or herself. Hale paced the room, adrenaline edging his steps. So what now? If they know she's alive, then the whole program, whatever Aegis was, is compromised again. Ward stared at Maeve. "We need to notify federal oversight." The door swung open before he could finish. 3 people entered, 2 men and 1 woman, all in civilian attire, but moving with the unmistakable cadence of trained operators. The woman stepped forward, flipping her badge open just long enough for Ward to register the seal. "Federal Bureau of Special Investigations, Internal Threat Division, Miss Cole," she said. Her tone was firm, but not hostile. "We've been tracking unusual activity linked to the Aegis shutdown. We believe your reappearance is connected." Maeve didn't answer immediately. Instead, she knelt beside Cade, tapping a short sequence on his collar. He relaxed, but only slightly. The lead agent nodded. "Thought so? He's wired for dual mode readiness. That means you're expecting an external threat." Maeve stood again. "You're already late." The agent's brows lifted. "So you know who's after you?" Maeve's eyes didn't flicker. Seraph, the weapons broker the task force was chasing in 21. Rivers nearly choked. That name was wiped from every intelligence channel. Maeve replied quietly. "That's why he's still out there." The agent gestured toward the hallway. "We need a secure place to talk. Your life and that dog's is now part of an active investigation." Maeve didn't move. "Cade goes wherever I go." "Understood," the agent said. "But before we relocate, we intercepted something an hour ago." She handed Ward a sealed evidence pouch. Inside was a small drone snapped in half by a security round. Its memory card was still intact. Halle peered closer. "That wasn't military. That's commercial, tech-modified for long-range surveillance." Rivers plugged the card into the workstation. The screen filled with images, captured just before the drone was shot down. Maeve entering the kennel. Cade recognizing her. The moment they walked out together, each frame tagged with coordinates and timestamps sent to an external IP. Ward exhaled sharply. So they know she's alive, they know he's operational, and they know they reconnected. Maeve nodded once, which means the clock just started. Cade rose, ears angled toward the hallway. He sensed something before the humans did a shift in sound or scent none of them caught. Maeve's voice dipped to a whisper. "They're closer than you think." And for the first time since she'd entered the base, every person in that room understood this wasn't just a recovered dog. This was the opening move of a larger hunt. And Maeve Cole was done running. The federal convoy moved before sunrise, engines running low to keep attention off the motorcade. Maeve sat in the second vehicle with Cade at her feet, his head resting against the side of her boot. The agent beside her kept glancing down as if trying to understand how a dog once labeled uncontrollable could look so calm now. Downtown Port Sterling came into view as the courthouse tower rose behind layers of concrete barricades. The building had been locked down since before dawn. Extra checkpoints, armed marshals, scanners recalibrated for chemical traces. Seraph's network was known for slipping past standard security, so nothing today was left to chance. Inside the courthouse lobby, the air crackled with tension. Attorneys shuffled papers with white knuckles. Federal observers whispered into encrypted radios, scanning for anything that moved wrong. Maeve walked past all of it without slowing. Cade stayed at her side like he was tethered by gravity rather than command. Every footstep echoed with the same rhythm they'd carried through deserts, ruins, and burned-out safe houses years ago. When she entered the courtroom, the entire gallery shifted. Half didn't expect a woman declared dead to walk in alive. The other half expected her to break. She didn't. She took her seat at the witness stand, placed her hands on the edge, and waited. Cade lay beneath her chair, perfectly still, eyes scanning the rows like a silent security grid. The defense stood first. Their lead attorney wore a smile sharpened by money and confidence. "Miss Cole," he began, "you claim to have participated in operations no longer recognized by the government." Maeve answered without hesitation. "I participated in operations the government couldn't acknowledge. There's a difference." The gallery stirred at the precision in her voice. The attorney pressed harder. "And your dog this asset? Are we to believe he retained classified conditioning after years of instability?" Maeve tapped twice on the wood. Under the chair, Cade shifted instantly into alert posture. The attorney flinched. The room whispered. "That answer your question?" she asked. Prosecution rose next, sliding a folder toward the judge. Inside was Maeve's service, reinstatement confirmed by 3 agencies. It was the first official recognition she'd received since surviving the hit meant to end her life. Then she reached into her jacket and placed something beside the microphone, a round metal coin, the kind earned, not issued. The room leaned forward. "This," Maeve said quietly, "was given to me by the team that pulled me out after the operation was compromised." She let the weight of the words settle like dust on stone. "They kept me alive long enough for today." Behind the tinted gallery window, silhouettes shifted. Someone was watching closely, someone who knew exactly what that coin meant. Pressure built like a storm behind glass. When the hearing recessed, the courthouse hallways filled with restless energy. Reporters pressed against barriers. Agents positioned themselves between crowds and entry points. Maeve walked toward the transport elevator, Cade guiding, subtly nudging her away from a distracted clerk, then a jostled camera crew. Nothing looked dangerous, but Cade's tension hummed through the leash clips she didn't need to hold. Halfway down the corridor, he froze. A full stop. Shoulders tight, lungs halted, mid-breath. Maeve instantly braced. The nearest agent whispered, "What's he marking?" Maeve scanned the hallway. Something chemical. Something recent. Security surged forward. The floor directly ahead had a faint smear transparent to the eye, but not to Cade's nose. A thin trail leading toward the parking structure. Before they reached it, emergency klaxons sounded. Marshals sealed the doors, redirecting personnel away from the lower exits. Someone had breached the garage minutes earlier. Maeve stayed calm, but the flicker in her expression said enough. Serif's people were here, not watching from this point on acting. Once the threat sweep ended, they escorted Maeve to a secured vehicle. Cade didn't relax until the armored doors shut. And even then, only slightly. He kept glancing toward the courthouse roof as, if searching for someone, he remembered. Hours later, the verdict came down. Serif, guilty on multiple federal charges. 14 associates detained. 3 officials under investigation. It should have felt like victory. But when Maeve stepped outside, a cold wind cut through the plaza. Cade stiffened again, alert, but silent. No attackers. No vehicles rushing forward. Just a single card tucked beneath the windshield wiper of her transport. Plain. White. Unmarked. Except for coordinates. And one phrase, written in the same hybrid language she'd spoken to Cade in the kennel. Tikkun persists. So do we. The agents tensed. Ward muttered, "Is this a threat?" Maeve didn't answer. She looked at Cade. He looked back steady as stone. Whatever message this was, it wasn't the end. It was an invitation. Weeks later, Maeve stood on a training field outside the capital. Grass bent in the wind. Trainee teams watched as Cade demonstrated silent entry maneuvers, with the ease of an old soldier finding purpose again. Brienne arrived with photos of a young Malinois head case, saved from euthanasia. The dog now deployed overseas. 3 IEDs detected. 0 casualties. "Your work saved him," Brienne said. Maeve shook her head gently. "No. Someone just needed to believe he wasn't broken." Cade nudged her hand like he agreed. As the sun set, Maeve pocketed the challenge coin. "Tikkun," she whispered. "Repair. Restore." Cade's tail tapped once against her leg. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. "Ready for whatever comes next?" she asked. Cade answered without sound, just certainty in his eyes. Maeve smiled. "Good," she said softly. "Me too."